The image of a knight in shining armor is one of the most enduring symbols of the Middle Ages. But did you know that shining armor is a myth? Real armor was often dulled to prevent rust. Today we're pitting a warrior of the real Middle Ages, the knight, against an ancient icon of battle, the Roman gladiator. One fought for god and king, the other for survival in the bloody sands of the arena. This is Gladiator versus Knight, a clash between two worlds. Who would win? Welcome back to Epic and Extraordinary. In this video, we're pitting two of the most iconic warriors in history against each other. On one side, the gladiator, a master of combat from ancient Rome, whose life was a brutal spectacle of skill and violence. On the other, the medieval knight, an armored noble, a symbol of chivalry and a heavy cavalryman on the battlefield. While both were master fighters, their worlds couldn't have been more different. The gladiator's goal was to survive the show in the arena, while the knight's was to win a large-scale war. We will break down this legendary contest by looking at their training, their gear, their fighting styles, and their philosophies to find out who would prevail in a one-on-one battle. The central problem of this matchup is that they are not just two fighters from different eras, they represent two fundamentally different philosophies of combat. A gladiator was a specialist trained in a ludus, a gladiatorial school for a specific style of fighting, whether as a heavy-armed Murmillo or an agile Retiarius. Their entire existence was a performance for an audience where a duel could end in a draw or even with the loser being spared, which is not what you see in the movies. A knight, on the other hand, was an elite warrior of a higher social class, trained for years to fight in coordinated units on the battlefield. The knight's code of chivalry often required them to fight with a sense of honor, refusing to strike a dismounted opponent or a defeated enemy who begged for mercy. So, when a gladiator whose very life depended on a pragmatic, no-holds-barred fight for survival faces a knight who fights by a code of honor, what happens? This is more than a contest of strength. It's a clash of combat philosophies. Let's take a closer look at what each warrior brings to the fight. The gladiator, master of the arena. The gladiator was a highly trained fighter whose skills were honed in a gladiator school like the Ludus Magnus, the largest of its kind in Rome. Gladiators came from a variety of backgrounds, including slaves, prisoners of war, and even paid volunteers, who were considered to be the best and most entertaining fighters. They were not a single, uniform type of warrior, but a class of specialists, each with a distinct set of armor, weapons, and fighting styles, and they were carefully matched against a complementary opponent. For example, the Murmillo was a heavily armored fighter with a large shield, scutum, and a short sword, gladius. He relied on brute strength and endurance, and his helmet, which limited his vision, forced him to rely on his other senses to fight. His fighting style was one of pure forward pressure, embodying Roman military virtues of discipline and controlled aggression. Then there was the Retiarius, an agile netman, who, with his trident and net, fought the heavily armored Secutor. The Retiarius wore minimal armor, and his strategy relied on mobility and timing, circling his heavily armored opponent to find an opening to entangle him in the net before thrusting with the trident. Other types included the Thraex, who used a small round shield and a curved sword sika to attack an opponent's limbs from unexpected angles, and the Hoplomachus, who fought with a long spear, a small shield, and a short sword, in a style that was meant to mimic a Greek hoplite. The knight, the armored force. The knight was a nobleman who, from his early teens, was trained in horsemanship, swordsmanship, and even grappling. Their armor, a full suit of plate, weighed between 33 and 55 pounds, but this weight was evenly distributed across the body, allowing for surprising agility. A knight could run, jump, and fight effectively in a full suit of plate, and their training included activities like wrestling, fencing, long jumping, and dancing while wearing armor. Knights were the heavy cavalry of the Middle Ages, and their fighting style was built around coordinated charges on horseback, using the momentum of their war horses to break enemy lines. They were trained to fight as a cohesive unit, working with other knights, archers, and infantry to win the war, and rarely fought alone. A knight was also a master of a variety of weapons, including swords, lances, maces, and poleaxes, each with a specific purpose in battle. Their armor was designed to provide protection against enemy attacks, and they relied on it to withstand blows on the battlefield. A knight lived by the code of chivalry, which valued bravery, honor, and loyalty, but also courtesy in combat, such as not attacking a dismounted opponent or an enemy who surrendered. The stage is set, a large, open plain, perfect for a confrontation. A knight in full plate armor, mounted on his warhorse, lowers his lance for a charge. He is an unyielding force of steel, a symbol of European military might. Across from him, a single gladiator, a Murmillo, stands with his massive shield and short sword, waiting. The knight charges, his horse gaining speed, the ground rumbling under the weight of his armor. But this gladiator is a specialist, trained in one-on-one combat to survive this exact scenario. The knight's lance strikes the Murmillo's large shield, but the gladiator absorbs the blow, using his training and strength to stay on his feet. The force of the blow causes the knight's lance to shatter, and he thunders past the gladiator. The knight, now dismounted, draws his sword. He expects an honorable duel, but the gladiator has no such code. The Murmillo rushes in with his sword, not to kill, but to cripple. He feints with his blade, and then, using his shield, he pushes the knight off balance, targeting the gaps in his armor. The knight, in his heavy armor, struggles to regain his footing, and the gladiator, agile and quick, exploits the opportunity, striking at the joints and exposed areas. It's a brutal, chaotic, close-quarters battle, a clash of steel and a contest of brute strength versus raw, no-holds-barred fighting for survival. The battle rages on, and in the end, it's not who has the better armor, but who has the better strategy for this specific fight. In the end, this battle is more than a simple fight. It's a clash of systems and philosophies. The knight's strength lies in his role as a shock troop and his ability to fight in a coordinated formation, making him a devastating force in a large-scale war. The gladiator, however, is the master of the individual duel, where rules are few and survival is the only goal. While a knight's armor would protect him from many blows, it is not invulnerable, and in a fight with a gladiator who is trained to be lethal and cunning, the outcome is uncertain. Both are the epitome of the warrior of their era, one defined by the code of chivalry and the other by the brutal pragmatism of the arena. So, who do you think wins this ultimate clash? The code of the knight or the cunning of the gladiator? Let us know in the comments. And be sure to check out our video on Samurai Versus Vikings for another legendary showdown. Until the next time, stay epic and extraordinary.